Let's talk about the indigenous Nigerian oil companies making a good showing on the Nigerian oil and gas investment space since the year 2021 started, with at least 3 announcements already on the street led by HEIRS Holdings. Talk about that earlier. $1.1 billion US stake in Shell, Total, ENI, OML 17 facility located in Rivers State. Joining me to speak to these investment announcements is MUSTAPHA WAHAB. He's the oil and gas analyst at Chapel Hill, DENHAM, one of the investment banking securities trading firm on Broad Street. Good evening, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Bosin, for having me. I hope you have a visual of me.
Yeah, we have a visual of you. We have you. Very nice background there. I got to visit, well, one of these days, see what your library looks like. I love books a lot. But let's talk about Seplat. Let's start with Seplat. Seplat is the latest in this long list of Nigerian firms raising multi-million dollars of investments into their oil and gas projects. Are you analysts in the sector watching these developments very closely, and why?
Yes, Bosin, we follow Seplat very closely. One of the, the only listed upstream exposure in the Nigerian securities market. Seplat is a fantastic company, by the way, right? And I think what Seplat is doing over the last couple of years is that it is, sort of strategically leading Nigeria's transition to gas, and hence that's a massive investment in gas business in recent times. You would agree with me, Bosin, that gas is probably the way to go right now. And I think that sort of structural demand prospects for gas in Nigeria would essentially justify any aggressive investment in the business. So first of all, Nigeria's gas reserve exceed that of oil reserves. And what we think is that these massive gas reserves, would potentially help meet the enormous demand for electricity demand in Nigeria. But beyond that, and more important, is the fact that gas prices in Nigeria are sort of decoupled from the volatility in the global oil market, and that's because prices are pegged at around $2.5 per million standard cubic feet. So what we're saying is that there are ample of opportunities for the upstream players to basically reallocate portfolio biasedly towards gas, right? If you check Seplat's numbers at 9 months, what you see is a fantastic, well-diversified business, right? And in fact, to underscore the scale of things, I think that as at 9 months, gas alone delivered close to 21% of the company's revenue as of 9 months 2020. So historically, what we know for Seplat is that they've previously announced that ANOH gas projects will come on stream by the end of this year. And I think that the news around the successfully raised $260 million, debt funding, actually sort of make that deadline a lot more feasible, right? Just a bit of a context, ANOH gas projects is located on OML 53, right, and it's owned by APGC, which is the ANOH gas processing company. That's an IJV that is equally owned by both Seplat and Nigerian gas companies, a subsidiary of NNPC. Right, so just to give you some sort of comfort regarding the magnitude of the demand that we should be expecting once ANOH gas project start processing by the end of this year. What we think is that ANOH gas project has actually secured a take-or-pay offtake agreements, right, up to the tune of 190 million standard cubic feet per day of processed gas. That's roughly 60% of the installed capacity of the project, right? So what we're saying is that the demand is already there. We're only waiting for the project to start processing gas by the end of this year.
Well, what is significant about these investments? Why are they significant? Especially look at that of HEIRS Holdings and Cornell in exploration, OML 17 for HEIRS Holdings and OML 86 and 88 for Cornell.
Yeah. So, we would have been excited if what we're seeing is fresh monies or fresh equities coming into the oil and gas space in the country. But basically, these deals are just, indigenous firm, essentially buying, or taking off interest from IOCs, right? So what we think IOCs are basically doing is that they are using COVID-19 as a great justification for reducing their portfolios of holdings in the country. But beyond that, most of the assets that is sold to Cornell, for instance, or HEIRS Holding, they are basically, shallow assets, right? So what those IOCs are basically doing is to try to move, their operation towards offshore projects where profitability is the highest. So if you take a look at OML86, for instance, what you see is that it's a shallow water block, right? Only two field of those blocks are basically producing, right? For HEIRS Holding, what we think is that the move to acquire OML17 is basically strategic. Right. In my experience in investments, what I know is that be it oil and gas or infrastructure, businesses that are, integrated are basically more or less the most profitable businesses in Nigeria. I think that's the level HEIRS Holding is basically trying to reach, right? Once they acquire OML17, right, what would happen is that gases that is being produced from that field basically be supplying, both Transcore power and also AFAM power plants, essentially.
Okay, so what does this mean for the Nigerian hydrocarbon industry? Let's talk about the role that local banks and other lenders locally are playing in this. I'm sure some of this money are coming from within the country for these indigenous oil companies.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's essentially what I mentioned. I mean, at the start of this interview, right? Monies that are coming into the oil and gas industry, they are mostly local money, just basically changing hands. And for local banks in Nigeria, I think it's more or less, businesses as usual. Right now, we all understand that for upstream players, oil price remains the king, right? And what we're now seeing is that rising oil prices is more or less driving some sort of robust oil economics for oil upstream players. Hence, that sort of appetite for banks to sort of start pushing a lot of money in the oil space. But for Nigeria, basically, what we think is that Nigeria is still struggling, right, to attract new investment as far as global competitive landscape is concerned. What we checked between 2015 and 2019. What we saw was that close to 70 billion actually flowed into Africa in completed FIDs. And Nigeria was only able to attract 3 billion out of that. That just basically shows that things are not still rosy yet for Nigeria. Perhaps the passage of PIB could potentially be the key game changer for the industry in Nigeria.
Okay, let's bring in the NNPC into this, which is the king in the oil industry. Are you seeing some positive moves by the State Oil Corporation in all these investment deals?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the good thing about NNPC is that I think the corporation now understand that 2021 to 2030 is basically more or less the decade for gas, right? Given its numerous advantages, right? If you recall, NNPC is partly owns that ANON gas project based on 50% interest that is shared with Seplat, right, on ANON. So I said it earlier that before they announced the completion of the funding part of that $260 million debt, right? Both NNPC and Seplat had already invested close to $420 million in equity funding. So that just basically shows that NNPC is actually very serious as far as investing in gas is concerned, because I think that's the new way to go as far as oil industry is concerned in Nigeria. And yes, they are actually playing a key role in ensuring that that comes to fruition in the country.
MUSTAPHA WAHAB, thank you so much for your time this evening. Oil and gas analyst at Chapel Hill, Denham, an investment and securities trading firm licensed by the SEC and the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Thank you so much.